Welcome. Today we're going to take a look at historical fiction and specifically how we can learn truth from fiction. Our learning goals for today are to look at what historical fiction is, what is fact, and what is fiction, and to take a look specifically at how we can use historical fiction to learn about real historical time periods. What is historical fiction? Historical fiction is a term that refers to a particular type of literature, a genre of literature. It is fictional. It is based, though, on real times, real people, and real places. The typical expectation that a reader can have is that the historical elements of the story are authentic, they are true, and therefore not fictional, but the other pieces may be fictional. How can historical fiction be used? How can we as readers use it to our benefit? Well, we can use it as entertainment. Historical fiction is very popular in both short stories and novels in particular. It's something really enjoyable to read. We can also use it for information gathering. We can take a look at historical fiction and find lots of particular details about specific times in history. Say that you're particularly interested in a particular time period and you want to know more about it. If you find a group of historical fiction novels that are all about that time period, you can learn quite a bit about the historical time. We could also use historical fiction as a way to connect to a particular time period or to a variety of different time periods. So, what steps should we take when we're looking to learn from historical fiction? One thing we want to do is to separate out the fact from the fiction. We want to connect with those characters. We need to be able to determine what is true and what is not true within the story, but we also want to have a personal connection with it. We want to be able to identify the setting, which is the time and the place of the story. And we want to be able to pull out the factual details that are included there. Then we know what's true. Anytime you have a question about a particular item that's in historical fiction novel, you should go ahead and look that up. Google it or search for it in some other manner so that you can find the answer to your question right away. Since historical fiction uses a combination of fact and fiction, you may have to do that a little bit more frequently than you would with different genres. The characteristics that we typically see within historical fiction genre is that it is in a historical setting, so the time and place are in genuine historical time period. The characters should be similar to people during that time period. Sometimes they'll even use real people from a time period by basing the entire story on particular famous people from a time. The historical elements should always be accurate. Those should never be fictional. The culture of the time period also should be accurate. That should not be fictionalized as well. Now, the plot or the storyline, that may be fictional or partially fictional. It should follow along with historical events, though. Let's take a look at what is fact. Fact is something that is true. It's something that's verifiable. It can be proven in a variety of different ways. It's indisputable. It's something that has actually occurred. Although a person may not like a particular fact, it still is true. And its opposite is fiction. Fiction is invented information. We find fiction in poetry, novels, drama, and other types of literature. It's imaginary, it's theoretical, it's creative. It is not necessarily true, although it may have some truth to it. Although a person may want fiction to be true, it is not. So, looking at fact and fiction, where fact is information that's absolutely true, and fiction is information that is invented for the purpose of driving the story forward, what kinds of elements within the fiction might we find to be fact or fiction in historical fiction? Well, for facts, we may find the setting, such as the time and place, people's names, dates, and events. Those are all things that certainly should be true. They should be facts. In terms of items that might be fictionalized, we may find characters, plot, or even subplots, sub-elements to the plot, conflicts or minor conflicts, or descriptive details. Those are elements that we may find to be fictionalized in historical fiction. While you're reading historical fiction, try to follow these little tasks here. First of all, enjoy the story. Historical fiction is absolutely wonderful to read. It's really entertaining. It's a lot of fun. So be sure to enjoy it. Connect with the characters. The more that you can find a single character or a couple of characters within a story that you really connect with and that you really care about, the more that that literature is going to mean to you and the more that the time period is going to mean to you. Try to learn about the setting, which would be the time and the place. Try to learn about the historical events. The more that you understand about the history, the more that you'll understand about the literature. Use historical fiction as a fun first step to learning about a time period. If you find studying history to be kind of boring, start out by reading a historical fiction novel, and that may be a great first step for you. At this point, what you should know and be able to do is to know what historical fiction is and to be able to identify fact from fiction. You also should understand how to use historical fiction to learn about historical time periods. I hope this information has been helpful to you. Good luck with your reading.